the Back to the Future trilogy is one of the greatest moments in film history. I have never met someone who grew up watching those movies not loving them. And what's not to like? You have the crazy scientist Doc Brown, who builds a time machine out of all things a DeLorean, and cool dude Mark McFly, who skateboards, is in a band, and has a smoking hot girlfriend. And these two characters travel through time, get into all sorts of adventures, and through all this, many life lessons could also be learnt. Basically, everything you could ever want in a good film or film trilogy is here. And also, if you're an old school gamer as well as a BTTF fan, you more than likely grew up playing at least one bad Back to the Future game as a kid. For me, it was that diabolical Back to the Future Part 3 on the Mega Drive. Ugh. Hands up if anyone got past that stupid first level. I thought not. And for other gamers, it was probably one of these bad Back to the Future games they grew up playing as a kid. Before Telltale's epic Back to the Future episodic downloadable game series, it's often been believed there are no good Back to the Future games. Well, it's kind of true and it kind of isn't true. So for this week's episode of Michael's Retro Game Reviews, I'm travelling to the land of the rising sun and reviewing the longest title holder of Best Back to the Future game, before it was taken by Telltale's Super Back to the Future 2 for the Super Nintendo. On first impressions, this game looks amazing, and that epic 16-bit rendition of the main Back to the Future theme tune, wow! How could you not fall in love with this game after hearing that? But more on the music in a bit. Graphically, Super Back to the Future 2 has a very Japanese feel to it, and I can understand why. It was made in Japan for a Japanese audience of Back to the Future film fans. But at the same time, liberties must be taken with the source material when you create something from another creation, like turning a movie into a video game, or turning a video game into a video game review, so I totally get it. The graphics do take some getting used to, but nonetheless, it's a refreshing change of pace. With its big, bright and overly colourful levels, which are loosely inspired by locations from Back to the Future Part 2. The attention to detail is not only in the levels, but in the characters too. Just look at Mark McFly with his big Japanese bubble-style head. Super Back to the Future 2 has an interesting take on the platform genre and does try something new with it, while remaining as true as it can be to the movie that it's based on. What this game does is uses Marty's hoverboard as the basis for the entire game. Think Super Mario Bros. But on a hoverboard, and that isn't too far of a stretch because in this you collect gold coins like in Super Mario Bros. And collecting these coins is key to completing this game. They can be used to gain more lives or temporary invincibility. And great Scott, Super Back to the Future 2 totally takes advantage of that amazing sound chip in the SNES. The first few tunes in this game are just 16-bit takes on the epic Back to the Future theme tune. And the rest of the tunes, well, I wasn't expecting much, but they generally surprised and entertained me. But also they don't feel out of place in the Back to the Future universe. So if you're looking to add a few tunes to your retro video game music collection, you can't go wrong with this game. Or you could check out my retro video game music podcast, wink wink. You never know, you may hear a few tunes from this game in it. And this is pretty much where my praise for this game ends. I wanted to like this game so much, and on first impressions it looks like a really good game. But no matter how much I played Super Back to the Future 2, the problems here just weren't going to go away. I know the 13-year-old me would be screaming, "Are you kidding, this is a good game?" And I wouldn't blame him. I mean, he grew up without any decent BTTF games. But at age 27, when playing this game for the first time, and also doing this video review of it, I have to be honest, I didn't like it. There are several reasons why this game fails, but if you narrow it down and cut to the chase, there are really only 3, and the rest of the problems are just small potatoes. So here are the 3 reasons why this game doesn't work. Reason number 1, no checkpoints. There is nothing worse than getting almost to the end of a level and dying. But do you know what's worse than dying? Having to start at the beginning of the level again. You don't do it. Most decent platformers have checkpoints, or keep levels short so that if you die, it's no biggie to start at the beginning again. In this game, the levels are long enough to warrant a checkpoint system or something to that effect. Without one, it just makes the whole process of dying and starting over again tedious. And video games are meant to be fun and challenging, and not unnecessarily frustrating. It's a shame that Super Back to the Future 2 doesn't have any checkpoints of any kind. That alone would have gone a long way to help in this game. Instead, it just adds to its many problems. Reason number 2, lack of control. In order to play and hopefully enjoy a game, you need control over your character or whatever control the game lets you have over it. I don't mind how difficult a game is as long as my little dude does what I tell it to when I tell it. With this game, you always feel like you don't have any control. Trying to explain why a game feels, especially a bad one, isn't easy, but I'll do my best to put you in my shoes when I was playing this. To make a character move, you need to press the speed up button. If you don't press this button, your character doesn't hardly move. And it's the same for jumping. If you jump without any momentum, you just jump on the spot. So for most of this game, you'll pretty much be holding down the speed up button. You have to be thinking, it doesn't sound like a problem, and why don't you just hold it down all the time? But there are times when trying to do platform stuff while you're still holding down the speed up button is impossible to do. Because if you jump onto a floating platform while pressing the speed up button, as you land, you're going to end up hovering right off the platform. So you have to let go when you land in order to stay on the platform. But without any momentum just before you jump, you're just going to end up jumping on the spot again, but this time on a platform. So you need momentum to jump off the platform in a direction to try to reach the next one. And if you manage to successfully jump onto the next platform, remember, let go of the speed up button before you land, otherwise you're going to hover uncontrollably right off the platform as you land. Now do you get it? What this game is trying to do is to force you to juggle from moving, jumping and speeding up in order to move and progress through the levels. While I admire this game for trying something new, it doesn't work. You just end up going nowhere or dying all the time. And no matter how much you play Super Back to the Future 2, the controls never become second nature like they do in, let's say, a Sonic or Mario game. Reason number 3, you can't see what's in front of you. When I was playing my original Game Boy, I found games on it tend to be from two perspectives. Either from a distance so you can see everything, but the trade-off was very little detail in the main character and the world itself, or super close up so you could see more detail in the main character and the world around him. But again, the trade-off would be that you couldn't see very far in front of your main character. And that second perspective is how this game feels. Now on a Game Boy I can understand this because of the small screen size and limited resolution, but for a Super Nintendo game, this isn't acceptable. I've played many SNES games where you can clearly see way in front of you and still have plenty of detail in the playable character and the world around him. So I'm stunned by this game. Okay, maybe they want to put in as much detail in the main character as possible, but at the expense of not being able to see what's in front of you? What the developers have done here is made a SNES game feel and play like a GB one. I wouldn't mind if it wasn't for the fact that you can't see very far in front of you. And even when I learnt the levels inside and out and knew a hazard was about to come up, I still went smack right into it every time. This choice in the visuals doesn't help this game in any way and only go to hinder the playing experience. And this is sadly the final nail in the coffin. Allow me to try and cover myself from negative comments and criticism that I might get for this review. After my review of the Lucky Dying Caper, which seemed to anger the legions of Lucky Dying Caper fans... I'm kidding, we're cool, but I did have a point though. I didn't go into enough detail about why I didn't like that game. And ultimately I failed to prove my point. And since then I've tried not to repeat that mistake again with this review. So if you like this game, power to you. And if you don't agree with me, at least acknowledge that I tried to fully and completely explain my points with as little to no doubts about my reasoning for not liking this game. So, my final thoughts. This game, it just wasn't for me. I really wanted to enjoy it, but I just couldn't get past the problems I had when playing this. Even still, I'd recommend trying it out of curiosity because it's an interesting and quirky Japanese game with an unusual take on the Back to the Future franchise. And who knows, you might enjoy this, whereas I couldn't. So sadly, I had to give this game the thumbs down. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you back again in the future.